Welcome to today's live IELTS class. My name is Adrian and I'm streaming to you from beautiful Budapest here in Central Europe near the Danube. And today we are looking at IELTS listening sections 3 and 4 to complete the listening part of the exam that we started yesterday. Suraz, Amarwadi, Samir, Gaurav, good to see many students joining in. I'm doing great. Thank you for asking. Students, as usual, our materials do come from our websites. Check us out at aehelp.com for the academic version of the test and gieltshelp.com for the general version of the test. On both of those websites, we have 6 full practice exams, over 100 hours of HD video lessons, and a fully interactive course with strategies to get those high band scores. You can also download our app, Academic IELTS Help, from your Google Play or Apple stores. If you have questions, send me an email, Adrian, A-D-R-I-A-N, at aehelp.com. And if you want the paper version of our exams, you can buy them from Amazon. Look for AE Helps Academic IELTS or GE Helps General IELTS. And again, a very important reminder to everybody that we will not have live classes until the 14th. On the 14th, we will have 2 live classes, one for members, one for everyone. So until then, we will release a couple of HD videos for you on the channel, but no live classes until the 14th. So just remember that after today, there's a slight break. I will be traveling, so on the 14th, I will continue, and we will maybe make up some of the classes in the coming days and weeks. All right, everyone, here we go. Let's do listening section 3. So this listening section 3 is coming from our 6th exam, and I will play the audio in just a moment for you here. Students, please do not write your answers into the chat when you're listening on a separate piece of paper or a separate document so that you're fair to other students. You don't confuse them with wrong answers. Give them a fair chance, okay? So please wait until we finish section 3 for the answers. Okay, we're going to hop over to the academic website here. You can join aehelp.com by clicking on that red button. Then you get access to your My Student account. And in the My Student account, you get a tour of all the fantastic parts of it. And then you have your audio CDs for these exams, and we're going to use our audio CDs for this listening from the website. And students, if it's quiet for you, please turn up the volume on your side. My side is on maximum volume. So here we go with listening section 3.
Now turn to section 3. Take some time to look at questions 21 to 26. Listening section 3. You will hear a radio host and his guest discussing the virtues of various art forms. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 26.
All right, welcome back, everyone. Our next guest is the curator of a major art gallery in the city who has just released his 2nd book on the virtues of art. We're pleased to have Mr. Edgar Patterson here today. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here, and please call me Edgar.
Edgar, of course. Now, in your first book, published 4 years ago, you focused on performance artwork such as plays, musical concerts, films, and other such works. Your second book is a little closer to home for you. It concerns purely creative fine art.
Well, yes. It deals with the aesthetic virtue of different painting styles.
Okay, so give our viewers a quick rundown on what your book is about. Does it make an argument? I mean, does your book take a position on a certain issue in the world of art?
Yes, my book does take a position, and a rather radical one. The main thesis of my book is that the meaning we associate with a painting exists purely within ourselves. This is in stark contrast to many commentators who believe that the author of a painting gives the painting its meaning. Under this framework, if an artist intends his painting to represent the fear of an orphan child, then this is the one and only meaning such a painting can have. We might call this the intention theory of art. Conversely, my theory is that no matter what the intention of the author is, the meaning of the painting comes from the viewer. The meaning is exactly what the viewer thinks it is. This solves an important problem with the intention theory of art, namely that we do not have access to the mind of the artist, and therefore we do not have access to the painting's meaning at all.
Very interesting, Edgar. But doesn't the intention theory work as a sort of grounding for artistic analysis? What I mean is, while we might not know the meaning the artist intended, isn't the point of art to try to discern this meaning? If art is just whatever we want it to be or feel it as, doesn't that somehow make it less valuable?
That's an astute critique of my position, but one I have an answer for. My response is that art is not merely what we want it to be or feel it as. We can still participate in our critique and interpretation. All I want to say is, in the end, it is up to us to discern the meaning and value of paintings on our own.
You now have some time to look at questions 27 to 30. Now listen to the rest of the discussion and answer questions 27 to 30.
Now, let's talk about one type of controversial art, abstract art. How does your, can I call it a subjective theory of meaning?
Yes, that is fair.
Okay. How does your subjective theory of meaning apply to something like modern or abstract art? Art which doesn't tell an obvious story or have a clear meaning. Many people think that such works of art have no meaning at all.
It's certainly an interesting case, but one which my theory is well matched to deal with. You see, abstract art has its critics. Like you say, they think it has no meaning at all. However, other people think abstract works of art have all sorts of meanings. Now, under the intention theory, most of these commentators will be wrong, since the work of art either has a meaning or it doesn't, and if it does, then it only has a single meaning. So under the intention theory, only those critics who discern the specific meaning of the artist will be successful. My theory, however, results in each critic being correct in their own way. For example, if, after critically analysing a certain abstract work of art, I determine it is meaningless, then it is meaningless. Because the meaning of an artwork comes from within, I cannot be wrong, and neither can other people. The critic who sees a metaphor for suffering and the critic who views it as something entirely different are both right. We are all correct in our interpretation, as long as we've given the painting a fair critique.
What do you mean by a fair critique?
Well, I mean it is not enough to merely look at a painting and write it off immediately as meaningless. One must go through a certain process. That said, there are certainly other...
That is the end of section 3. You will now have half a minute to check your answers.
Okay, students, in this last question, you should be able to solve from what the guest said to the host. Just going to stop the audio, and then we will go through the questions together. All right. This may have been somewhat challenging for some of you, as the topic is quite unique. It's talking about 2 ways to understand art. And some of you are probably thinking, ooh, I hope I don't get this kind of a listening audio or topic in my next IELTS exam. But you don't know that, okay? You could get something difficult. Here, what's important, students, is when you hear information in the IELTS listening that's not familiar for you, don't panic, okay? And don't become disinterested. Don't start thinking, I don't know anything about art. I can't listen to this. I'm just going to fail this exam, okay? That's a really terrible way to approach it, okay? So remember, if you hear information that is unfamiliar for you, like theories of understanding art, don't panic. Okay? Instead, what you should do is remember that your goal is to get as many answers correct as possible. And to do this, you don't necessarily need to know the topic. Okay, I'm going to show you what I mean by that as we go through the answers. So here we go with question 21. So how many books has this guest written? Choose the correct letter, A, B, or C. So when you have your space for 21 on your answer sheet, make sure that you write the correct letter, not the number. Okay? And I see that Amin and Prayakta and Ashwin all are saying B, and that is correct. Okay? So B is correct. If you write 2, you'll get that wrong. Okay? Because it's asking you for the letter, not the number. Okay? So careful. All right, now, what position does the guest give his book's thesis? So what description does the guest give his book's thesis? So is it A, it's a position, B, it's a radical position, or C, it's the intention theory? Okay, the correct answer is B. Okay, so it's radical. If you're unsure, if you're practicing this at home and you're like, what? How did you get radical there? How did you get B? Then what you need to do is you need to check the transcripts, which is basically the script for the book. And you will find that on page 163 in our exam book. And I'll show you where that information comes from. Okay. All right. So here the host says, okay, so give our viewers a quick rundown on what your book is about. Does it make an argument? I mean, does your book take a position on a certain issue in the world of art? And then the guest, Edgar, says, yes, my book does take a position, and a rather radical one. So he uses the word radical, okay? And then follows the main thesis of my book. So the position is the thesis. What type of a position or thesis? It's a radical one, okay? Pay attention to where the answers are coming from, okay? All right. So let's go back to the questions, and we'll keep moving forward. And I'll keep showing you how logic and listening. So again, you didn't really need to understand too much about books. You just needed to understand the phrase that his position is a radical one. Okay? Let's jump back to the questions. All right. Which statement best describes the intention theory of art? Now, of course, intention, it's good to know this word. It can be a little bit tricky if you're not familiar with the word intend. Okay, this is intention coming from intend. Intend meaning want to do. Okay, so intend, intention means to want to do. So want to do theory of art. A, the author creates an artwork's meaning. B, the meaning comes from the viewer. C, there is no meaning outside of the viewer's intention. And Zainab says it's A. And Ashwin agrees that it's A. And you're correct. The answer is A. Okay? And again, when you're thinking about this, you can realize that you don't need to understand art. You don't need to know these theories. You can get it just from the words as long as you have that lexical resource. So the author creates an artwork's meaning. The author, instead of creates, we can use the word intends. Okay? The author intends an artwork's meaning, and that makes sense. It's the intention theory. The artist decides what they want their picture to be about. So that's the intention theory of art. What is the biggest problem with the intention theory? So what is this big problem with this theory? Is it A, we do not have access to the mind of the artist? B, the intention is not our own, so we cannot discern it? C, it lacks grounding. Samir with 3 flames is saying it's A. Okay. And you're correct, Samir. Amin, you're correct also. So number 24 is A again. All right. We do not have access to the mind of the artist. So think about this, students. Again, it's very logical. If I have a painting with 3 lines like this, okay, and this is the painting. This is a beautiful picture. It's worth thousands and thousands of dollars. What is it, right? The author, the person who created it, believes that there's a meaning. I'm the author. I think that this is a painting of the ocean and the waves. Maybe some of you thought that, maybe some of you thought different. But the problem in trying to understand this painting's meaning is that you do not have access to my mind. Okay? Now, if you think about this logically, and again, logic is your friend, then these 2 questions, 23 and 24, makes sense, okay? Intention theory of art. The author creates the meaning. What's the problem? We do not have access to the mind of the artist. So if you read these questions and answers carefully, you should be able to figure out with logic that these 2 answers make sense for this question, even if you're not 100% sure about the meaning of intention. Is that clear? Is it understandable how logic and using information between questions can help you to gain confidence and figure out the right answer? Okay. Now, you can only do this. Thank you, Carolina. Thank you, Zainab, for the answer. You can only do this if you stay calm. Okay. If you start panicking at the beginning because you think, I have no idea about art, this is too strange for me, and that's where your mind starts to wander, then you will have a much lower chance of being able to logically and critically think about these answers. Okay, so yes, Samir, you have to stay calm and composed. The best possible situation is being calm and composed. So this is a tip. Keep in mind that if you panic because of an unfamiliar topic, your ability to effectively apply logic to problem solving and getting correct answers diminishes. Okay, diminishes means that you lose this ability. All right. Okay. So keep that in mind, students, as we go forward. Okay. Contemporary art, Sudhir, is modern. It's meaning modern as opposed to classical. Okay. All right. So let's go to 25 and 26. This was a short fill in the blank type question. Make sure to read the instructions carefully, which state 2 words and or a number for each one. 25, according to the host, one of the main goals in art critique is to understand a painting's something, and the intention theory seems best equipped for this task. So what is the goal of critique here? It's to understand a painting's meaning. That's right. It's to understand a painting's meaning. Good job, Amin. Good job, Onisim. So all right. So it's to understand the painting's meaning. Again, if you didn't get that, it's probably because you panicked. They repeated that answer several times, and I just want to show you this. So when you hear a word being emphasized, both of these words were actually emphasized in the audio, then it's more difficult to catch if you're panicking. So again, if we just quickly jump to the transcripts, then you will see very clearly, and of course when you see it, you're like, aha, well, yeah, there it is. So then you will see the message. So very interesting, Edgar, but doesn't the intention theory work as a sort of grounding for artistic analysis? What I mean is, while we may not know the meaning the artist intended, isn't the point of art to try to discern this meaning? If art is just whatever we want it to be or feel it as, doesn't that somehow make it less valuable? That's an astute critique, but one I have an answer for. My response is that the art is not merely what we want it to be or feel it as. And here, the word merely was emphasized for number 26. Okay? So, let's hop back to the questions. And now you know the answer for number 26. And this, the guest says directly as you see it. So the guest responds that art is not merely what we want it to be. So this is verbatim. It means word for word. Okay? Does everybody know the meaning of merely? So Zainab, Samir, Dr. Khori, do you know what it means, merely? What is the meaning of that? Yeah, it means says only. Yeah, it's only or just. Absolutely. Okay. All right, good. Let's keep going with the remainder. So you had a little bit of time here to review. And when you're reviewing, so here you have to fill out this form or this table. It says this column is a situation. This column is the intention theory, which is the classical theory. And then here is the author's theory of the subjective meaning theory. Subjective is a good word to know here, meaning it's from each person's position. And then when we look at the possible answers, you see that critic is wrong, critic is something, critic is right, critic is right. So just again by logic, we know that 27 has to be either right or wrong. 28 has to be either right or wrong. And in this form, again, logic could have helped you a lot, even if you didn't catch the audio. So the situation is the critic thinks critically about an artwork and judges it to have no meaning. According to the subjective theory, so according to the guest's theory, the critic is right. Why? Because according to this theory, as he explains, it's each person decides the meaning of the artwork. So here, if you say, well, Adrian, I think that your painting of these squiggly lines is not the ocean, it doesn't have any meaning at all, then you are correct. Okay? But according to the intention theory, and many of you are already on this, Samar Wadi and Samir and Jansi, you're saying that it's wrong. And that's the right answer. Okay? So wrong is the right answer. Make sure you spell it correctly. It's given there. So the critic is wrong. Why? So why is 27 wrong? Anybody? So it's a good answer, but can you tell me why it's wrong? So why is that? Why is this wrong? So why is the critic wrong if the critic says that there is no meaning? Yeah, Onisim, very good. So Onisim says, well, it's because the intention of the author, because the painter says that there's meaning. So if I say that this is the ocean and I'm the author, I created this painting, I'm the painter, then there is meaning. So the critic is wrong to say, if anybody says, Adrian, that's nothing, and then according to this theory, that's wrong. Okay? So Shang Hung, it's because the meaning is from the painter, the author, not the viewer. Okay? All right, next one. Critic does not think critically about an artwork and judges it to have no meaning. Critic is wrong, and according to the subjective meaning theory, the critic is, what's 28? So Arun says it's right. Samir says it's right. The correct answer is wrong. Why? So in both cases, it's wrong. Pay careful attention. Again, you can figure this out by looking carefully. So why is the critic wrong? And again, you can get this without understanding all of the audio, as long as you understand a little bit of what the man is saying. Then you can figure this out. So why is the critic wrong in this case also? Onisim says the critic has not Onisim says the critic has to transcend himself into the author's view. So Onisim, what you're saying is that the critic has to think critically. Notice the big difference between these two, okay? Don't ignore. These are very important for these types of questions, okay? The situation is very, very, very important, all right? So here, critic thinks critically about an artwork. Here, critic does not think critically about the artwork. And this man, he said that, well, you have to pay attention to the artwork. You have to think about it carefully. You can't just quickly look at that for 2 seconds and say, oh, that's nothing. You have to at least try to see that, okay, this one's a little shorter line, this one's longer, they're different patterns, maybe there's something there, maybe it's an ocean. So pay careful attention to the situation. Last one, critic understands the author's meaning. So the person looking at the painting says, yeah, I get it, that's the ocean, those are waves. Intention theory, critic is something, and subjective meaning theory, critic is right. Of course, because the critic has their own perspective, so they have to be right for this subjective meaning theory. In the intention theory, yeah, exactly, 29 is right. Okay, so if you understand the intention theory, so I draw something like this, then you can say, well, that's a smiley face, and you're correct. That's my intention. That's what I drew. That's what you said. We're correct. Okay? So everybody's correct. You're correct. I'm correct. It's clear that that is a happy face. Okay? So that was that part of 3. And now we had one more question, and I kind of purposefully got to this one a little bit late because this question, number 30, is an inferred answer. That means that you have to listen to the audio carefully, and by understanding the audio, you can give the correct answer. This is not coming directly from what you hear. This is an interesting type of question in the listening section, and you will see 1 or 2 of these where there is absolutely no way to just try to catch a word and know the answer. But instead, you have to understand a part of the audio or the whole audio to be able to answer it correctly. So here it gives you a situation. It says an art critic is viewing a painting for the first time and wants to critique it using the subjective meaning theory. It means the man's theory. Determine whether the critic has satisfied the constraints, the rules of the theory with regard to his critique of the painting. And then you have 2 options. A, the critic has satisfied the demands of the theory, or B, the critic has not satisfied the demands of this theory. And then 30, the critic looks at the painting for a moment and concludes from his initial impression that the painting lacks aesthetic value. So the person looks for a moment, okay, at those waves that I drew and says, it's not very beautiful. There's no real beauty here. Then the critic has satisfied or has not satisfied? A or B? Okay. Is it A or B? The correct answer here is B. Why? It's not A, it's B, so Cannon got it. Why? There's 2 pieces of information in this statement that let you know that the correct answer is B. Remember what the person says. It's the same reason why this question is wrong. Okay, so number 28 is wrong. So the critic does not think critically about an artwork. Thinking critically means that you think deeply, that you pay attention, that you ask yourself some questions about what you see. And here, notice that it's simply saying the critic looks at the painting for a moment. A moment means it's just a brief amount of time, right? It's a short time. And then, to help you more, because somebody might say, well, that's not enough for me to figure out that that's B, so he's not paying enough attention. He says, from the initial impression. Initial impression is like first impression. So, just a quick glance and first impression without looking deeply at the painting or the picture, I say, it's not beautiful, there's no value here. Then it has not satisfied the demands, because the man explains that for this theory to work, you have to, as the critique, you have to, or as the critic, you have to pay attention to what you see, okay? Yeah, Onisim says to critique involves reflection, and you're right, Onisim. All right, students, so that is part 3 or section 3 of the listening. We have section 4 to go. Add up your scores, students. What did you get? So what did you get for that section 3, listening section 3? What did you get out of 10? So of course the maximum score here is 10. So what was your score from 10? Ashwin says 6, Shanghung says 6, Samarwadi says 4, Amin says 8, Samir says 7. 6 or higher is good. Okay, for those of you who got 6 or more, great. For those who didn't, study a little bit more. If you're going for a band 7, then you should aim to get 6 or more correct for section 3 or section 4. Okay, so if you're getting less than 6, then you might be in a little bit of trouble if you want to get a band 6.5 or 7. Okay, all right. Let's move on to section 4. Again, I'm going to hop over to the website here in a minute. Keep in mind, students, your fellow classmates are working hard to listen as well. They want to give their own answers. So please do not put your answers into the chat. Please save them until we're finished, and then we will go through them together. Okay? So here we go with listening section 4, hopping over to the website. Again, if it's quiet for you, turn up the volume, put on a headset, and that should work. Here we go.
Battery 90%. Take some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Listening Section 4. You will hear a lecture about road infrastructure and its connection to economic prosperity. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
Roads have been connected to economic prosperity for millennia. The first roads were thought to have been created by repeated animal grazing and then utilized by humans as ready-made routes for travel between adjacent lands. These roads, evidence for which exists going back 12,000 years, were likely not connected so much to economic prosperity as to survival itself. These roads allowed hunter-gatherers faster access to greater swaths of land. The first paved roads were used in ancient Egypt about 4,500 years ago. Historians theorize that these roads were the first roads used for trade in our history. These roads also would have been used to transport items, such as building supplies. Though rivers were much more practical thoroughfares for the transport of goods, certain goods from certain areas could not be transported by boat, and this necessitated the creation of roads for economic reasons. The Silk Road, though not precisely a road, is one of the most famous trade routes in history. Composed of many types of road, the Silk Road stretched from China and Thailand in the east all the way through the Middle East and terminating in Western Europe. These different routes of the Silk Road brought myriad items from the east to the west, including, of course, silk. This brought economic prosperity to China and surrounding regions for many centuries. The Silk Road was so valuable for commerce that it persisted for over 1,500 years. The Roman Empire was the first major manufacturer of a system of roads. At its height, the Roman Empire contained 29 major roads, totaling over 75,000 kilometers. That's enough road to go around the world twice. Notably, this is almost the precise total length of the modern United States interstate highway system. These roads connected the vast lands of the empire and brought an intertwined economic prosperity to the diverse regions of the empire. Furthermore, the roads were used for military transportation, giving the Romans a massive strategic advantage over their less advanced adversaries. Through the Middle Ages, roads continued to be built and used for trade and commerce, though technological advances were virtually non-existent. Though tar-based roads were used briefly in the Arab Empire in the 8th century, This technology would not take off for another millennium. Today, our roads and highways connect our communities, countries, and economies. They are the modern trade routes by which we are all connected to each other. The modern world would not be possible without the vast expanse of road infrastructure. One interesting development in the history of road infrastructure was the advent of underground systems. The first such system, the London Underground, opened in 1863. Such subterranean routes greatly increase the volume of human life that a city can sustain, thus increasing that city's economic output. London would not be a fraction of the economic powerhouse it is today without its underground rail system. The same can be said for virtually every other major economic centre. Underground systems are the next generation of economic generators. While roads move goods which create economic prosperity, underground systems move human capital, which creates further economic prosperity. What is the next great advance in ground transportation? Some futurists have theorized about a system of tubes propelled by air pressure or other means, which would transport individuals vast distances in short times. Such a system could move humans at unprecedented speeds, perhaps with an economic footprint far less than that of subterranean networks. Such tubes could even be built underwater. Imagine such a system connecting New York to London or Tokyo to San Francisco. It would be incredible. Whatever lies ahead for humanity, roads have gotten us to where we are, and they are very likely to play a prominent role in getting us to where we will be next, in one form or another.
All right, students, so that is a typical listening section 4. No breaks, all in one go, as you realized, with some different questions. Here we go. Let's go through the answers together. So, write no more than 2 words for each answer. We're talking about roads here. What phenomenon created the first roads? So what was responsible for the first roads? You have to have 2 words for this one. Hint, hint. Okay. Amin, Samir, Onisim, close. Amin and Samir, you're correct. It's animal grazing. Okay. Grazing is when animals are eating the grass. So when you have horses, deer, elephants moving along and they're chomp, 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 chewing on the grass, it's animal grazing. Okay. And those were the first roads we were able to follow in the path cleared by animals as they slowly moved through forests and grasslands, eating the vegetation. And the next one here, though roads were necessary for the transportation of many goods, what was a much more practical thoroughfare, means transport route, for the transport of goods in ancient times? So roads are okay, but in days many thousands of years ago, what was a better mode of transportation? Samir says by boats. Onisim says water. Zainab says boat. And the correct answer is rivers. Okay, so rivers were the better way to transport goods. Of course, think about it. With a river, when you have a lot of items on your boat, the river just kind of moves your boat. Okay, so rivers instead of roads is the correct answer. Sometimes they wouldn't even actually have a boat. Sometimes they would just float the merchandise depending on what it was. Okay, number 33. Which of these roads totaled approximately 75,000 kilometers? Now, for this question, 33, you had to write A, B, or C. So A means it was the United States interstate system and the ancient Roman road network. B, it means it was all of these, the Silk Road and everything else. and C means 3 and not 4. Is it A, B, or C? Correct answer is A. Okay, so the only two roads or road systems that had this length of 75,000 kilometers are the United States interstate system and the ancient Roman road network. Nothing really there about the Egyptian road network, and the Silk Road was long, but one road not quite as long. Okay. All right. So here we go. There's a question that just came up. I can't read the Cyrillic, but it's, why is section 2 and 3 more difficult for me? It's probably because you're having difficulty with the dialogue. So section 4 is often a monologue, one person speaking continuously, and some students actually find that easier than section 3 or section 2, where there are dialogues, multiple speakers expressing different thoughts with different diction. So if you're having trouble with dialogues, focus your learning on dialogues, okay? I hope that helps answer your question. All right, so 34 and 35, all right? So for this one, that means that you need to make sure to put your answer in the correct spaces. It doesn't matter which order, as long as it's correct. So 34, 35, okay, just make sure it's in the right line. Choose the two letters, A to E. What were two benefits of the Roman system of roads? So the Romans had these roads. There were two benefits, advantages. What were they? Economic prosperity for the city of Rome, increased mobility of Roman armies, rapid technological advances, the importation of luxury goods from China, broad economic prosperity for the empire. Correct answers are B and E. Why is A wrong? So why is A incorrect? It's B and E. Why not A? Many of you said A, but the correct answers are B and E. Why not A? So B and A. You have to pay attention to the questions as well. Okay? So, what's that word? What's the word I just circled there? It's the city. Oh, sorry, it's not A. Sorry. B and E. Mona, thank you for that. So it's B and E. Brain confusion. Yeah, it's exactly, Carolina. So Rome is not a city. It's not the city of Rome. It's the empire. Exactly, exactly. So the correct answer is B. They said increased mobility of, they didn't say armies, they said military. So instead of armies, they used the word military. Military and army are the same. So that was a paraphrase. So that's why B. And then E was clearly stated. So the speaker said, and it brought economic prosperity for the empire of Rome, of course. Okay, so 34, 35, B and E. Order doesn't matter. You could have done it as E or B. Definitely not A. Okay, pay attention to the details of questions. Those can get you. Okay, so careful, careful. All right, here you had to match the correct letter with the answer. So A means applies to ancient roads, B applies to subway systems, C applies to future transportation, and D are all of these. So here we go, number 36. Increased economic activity. Increased economic activity. Is it A, ancient roads, B, subway systems, C, future transportation, or D, all of them? Yeah, 36 is D. Okay, so D, because we just saw that economic prosperity for the Roman Empire means ancient roads for sure. Subway systems, the speaker said it moves human capita, so human economy, right? Moving bodies, people to their jobs. And C, of course, in the future, we will still be fueling our economy by the use of roads, and the speaker clearly says that. So number 36 is D, okay? All right, 37, responsible for the growth of modern cities. Responsible for the growth of modern cities, A, B, or C. Charlie says it's B, Onisim says it's B, Amarwadi agrees, many people agree, yes, and that is correct. So the speaker says subway systems built modern cities, such as London. Okay, very good. Used for military transportation, so for moving armies, number 38. So moving along the road, using the road to move armies. Samir says D, Mona says A, Educational Guruji says A, and those who are saying A are correct. Okay, so yeah, students, don't get confused here. How often do you see soldiers going on subway systems in public? Not so much. That would not be so smart, okay, unless it was a secret subway. Can you imagine sending a military through a subway system? It wouldn't be very difficult to stop that military. They're moving underground if we know where they are. So I definitely would not put those poor soldiers into a subway tunnel. Okay, applies to future transportation. Yeah, we don't know that. Okay. All right. Moves human capital. So 39, moves human capital, moves people. Okay, human capital. Number 39. Yeah, subway systems. That's right. Okay, B. So far D, B, A, B. And will move humans at unprecedented speeds around the world. Number 40. So the last one. Will move humans. It's pretty easy, this one. If you look at will move. Will is the future. And the future is the future. So C. Don't overcomplicate. Okay? Be confident in your answers. C is correct. All right, so it's D, B, A, B, C. Okay, that's the correct set of answers there. Add up your scores, students. So in section 4, you should also be going for at least 6, 5, 6, hopefully a 7, and then you will get a good band score. For those students who were here in yesterday's class also, add up your scores from 40, okay? So your total section 1, section 2, section 3, and 4, add them up. What did you get? What was your total from 40? What did you get? Okay, and I'll tell you your band score in just a second. I'll hop over to our website here. And on our website, in the very bottom, let me just darken up the screen so you can see the brighter backdrop. Okay. So I'll tell you what band it is. At the bottom of our website, you see this score calculator. It's right there. Okay, you can click that, and then it will open up the score calculator. And then in the score calculator, the first one here is the listening. It's out of 40. Okay. And Ashwin had 28, Ashwin, right? Okay, so if you type in your raw score, it will tell you that that is a band 6.5. Okay. If you got 29, it is still a band 6.5. If you got 18, that is a band 5.5. 18 is a band 5.5, okay? Now remember, spelling does count. Capital letters, plurals, they all count. If you got 32, I see that RT Saini got 32. 32 is a band 7.5. Amin Isayev got 30. 30 is band 7. Okay, band 7 for 30. And Zainab, you got 21. 21 is a band 5.5. All right, students, so that is the score calculator on the bottom of the website. And of course, to maximize your learning, be sure to join our premium package. When you join the premium package, you will have access to all of these goodies. You have access to 6 interactive IELTS practice tests that you can do on your phone. You have a full online course with strategies and tips for all sections. It's interactive. It's about 400 different slides. You have a curriculum book, a student workbook, study plan. You have 6 practice exams in PDF. You have over 100 hours of video lessons. You have 10 audio CDs with lots of different materials, and you have even additional services for statement of purpose, CV assistance, and editing and more. Okay, so join that premium course. It's definitely worth it. And for general IELTS students, it's this one here with the green background. Click that big red button there to join us. And that, students, is all for today's class. Just remember, I will be back on the 14th, okay? So next live classes will be on the 14th of September. Until then, I will be away. And until then, make sure to use the course, use our app, Academic IELTS Help. Practice lots, practice every day, get feedback on your work. It's very, very important. Keep up the good fight. It is worth it. There is light at the end of the tunnel and wonderful, wonderful futures ahead of you. Believe in yourself. Your minds are supercomputers. They are the greatest and best in the living world. So be confident, and I will see you when I get back. Much love to all of you. Bye for now.